how you became the 2021 first Black male Texas Teacher of the Year.
I was destined to be the first Black man to do it based off of the trials and tribulations that I had growing up. And so those trials and tribulations ended up becoming my testimony. And so standing out as a bold man, but bold with my faith and with my works, it was meant to be. It's not by happenstance. When I decided to change careers to become a teacher, I don't do anything halfway.
Right.
And so I knew that before I was done teaching, that I was at least going to, win the district. But by the time I thought I was good enough to win the district, I was so much better than that award that I knew if I had an opportunity that I would win the Texas State Teacher of the Year. So I wasn't surprised at all that I won because I put the work in. And so I believe that workers win regardless of who you are attached to, who you're not attached to. My faith and my work ethic is going to win 95% of the time. Now, I was shocked that they allowed me to win the whole thing because the way it's set up, first off, Texas has more teachers than any other state by 100,000.
Oh,
so
wow.
for me to be the Texas State Teacher of the Year, I had to be 363,000 other teachers in the state of Texas. When it comes down to the final two, what I thought was going to happen was they were going to allow me to win the elementary school teacher of the year. And then the middle school and the high school, they get a winner. And then they would have chosen that person because only one person gets to do all the stuff that's remembered and go to DC, meet the president, do all this, all of that.
Right.
The person who wins their category, I mean, it's cool. It's an accomplishment, but nobody remembers that person.
Right.
And so that just shows you God. Like I expected one thing, which was going to be awesome,
Right.
but he gave me even more.
He did. Tell us a little bit about your journey. What made you on the right path for Teacher of the Year? So let's talk a little bit about your education and how you went from college, being a college graduate, to whatever career to being a teacher.
Well, for that, we had to start with my childhood.
Okay.
I'm from the Vale, is what we call it in Phoenix, which is right off the Stroll. It is the bad part of Phoenix where the Black people live. I grew up in a blue neighborhood and I was raised by my mother, who was married to a 100% disabled military vet who had schizophrenia, and he was not my biological father. I didn't know that until I was, about 11.
Okay.
But needless to say, lived in and out of battered women's shelters. And a lot of times when those demons or that illness would make him hear voices, the voices often told him to beat me. And so me being the oldest, I would take that because I have my little sister is 9 years younger than me. And then my brother, my half brother is, in the middle, about 5 years younger than me. That shaped who I was and how I look at education, because I went to a school that was a failing school, and we're talking about generational poverty, but not just poverty from a resources standpoint, but from a soul standpoint, from a educational standpoint, where the expectation for the kids that look like me, it wasn't high at all. And so when I think of my childhood and how it affects how I teach right now, like I needed more. I needed help. And everybody in the school knew that I lived with the neighborhood crazy, because he would come up to the school and he would be talking to himself, and he would just walk the perimeter around the whole school all day long, like screaming my name or, talking to himself. And the cops would come and it was just like, oh, then I'd have to go sit with the cops, and then we would go to a battered women's shelter. But I would literally hear teachers talk about me in the lounge and say, well, man, if he, his mother, the stress of dealing with that, it eventually led my mother to have a nervous breakdown, which led to crack cocaine. So I've heard them talk about me and be like, man, he's got a lot of talent, but he's not going to make it because he ain't got no help environment. And so that shapes the way I think about the whole child, and I go hard because I was a child that needed more and nobody gave it to me, and they knew I needed it, and nobody advocated for me. Nobody fought for me. Nobody gave me any extra. I've been homeless in high school that, I would sleep on the slide at the same elementary school that they didn't help me. And, just learned how to survive.
Right. Now, were your grandparents involved at all or no?
Well, yeah. So what happened was eventually I was raised old school, kind of like that, what happens in this house stays in this house type of thing. Right. And so eventually the crack cocaine use got so bad that she really wasn't like feeding us.
Okay. So she wasn't the same person. She had kind of distanced herself from the family.
And they're both in there doing it. And so I'm, finding ways to make money to feed my brother and sister. And eventually I just broke down. I went his back when we got payphones. I went to the payphone and I called my grandmother and I just told her everything. Yeah. It's first time. And that changed my life for the positive. That must have been like on Wednesday. By Saturday, she was down in Phoenix from Portland, Oregon. She packed up all of our stuff and she moved us back with her. But what's tricky about that is what a lot of people don't know, unless you've been to Portland, back in the 90s, the area where she lived was a rich historical area where all the blacks migrated. So all the blacks in Oregon basically live in an area that they call the NEP, which is Northeast Portland, which is down by where the basketball team plays. And Martin Luther King, black owned businesses. I moved there and was like,
culture shock.
I was like, everybody's black here. This many Negroes in Portland? No. Just in that 5-mile radius of Portland, the state's population of black people lived. Well, what happens with that? Well, of course, my grandma at this point, she's older and she's not doing her thing. It was actually worse for my mother because instead of having to drive from the west side, we were known more for like gang violence. But on the south side of Phoenix, it was gang violence and crack cocaine. We were gang violence and prostitution. They were gang violence and crack cocaine. So she used to have to drive way across town to get her rocks. But when we moved to Portland, the people my age were selling drugs across the street in a notorious park called Unthank Park. So her addiction got worse because she didn't have to travel to get it. And so then I dealt with fighting kids and stuff because in middle school, there were kids already selling drugs to my mother. Mm. And so, so that's how we get there. Eventually ran away to my grandmother's sister, my sweet Aunt Rose. And living in Portland was the first time that I had ever truly felt, I guess I would say, agave love. That was pure. My grandmother is basically like my mother, the way I view her. And my Aunt Rose was like the cool auntie that taught me about life and sex and females and allowed me to express myself as a young man.
Okay. Awesome. So